welcome back to another Beating Alpha episode. This is episode 129, and we have a very special guest on. His name is Tyler Bynum. So a little bit of background and things he's working on and kind of previous experiences. So he grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the way through high school. He played ice hockey pretty much his entire life at the different levels from travel teams to juniors and collegiate. So graduated from University of Arkansas with a degree in accounting and marketing. He came straight to the Dallas, Texas to get involved with one of the best commercial real estate markets in the world as a property accountant. Spent 4 years as an accountant on some of the largest firms like CBRE, then realized he would like to be a broker. So he moved to multifamily brokerage and haven't looked back since then. He also owned a drone videography company on the side, which has been very helpful during the COVID with all the virtual tours and showings. And again, for the social media, make sure to get in contact with them on Instagram, LinkedIn, and go to the website, which is crefirm.com. So Tyler, just want to say a big thank you for being today on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's no problem. It's my pleasure to get in contact with you and get connected and provide all this value to the people. So, okay, so let's go back to don't go back to the college and, the things that you did in there. That's pretty awesome what you did with the hockey. But let's talk about the Dallas. For what reason have you decided to move to Dallas? Because, there's a lot of different markets and a lot of those offer great returns or, multifamily or commercial, investment or for brokers. There's great markets as well. But for what reason you chose Dallas in particular?
Actually, originally, that kind of does go back to my hockey days. I have for some weird reason, commercial real estate's really popular in that sport. So had a lot of good networks with, some of my friends and co-players, their parents and everything. So, and most of them are involved in the commercial real estate industry down here. So being from Oklahoma, I'm 4 hours away. I grew up, 4 hours from Dallas, so it's not far. I knew the market decently well. And so it was an easy transition instead of, going to the coast and trying to learn a completely brand new market. I was at least somewhat familiar with this area.
So that's very interesting what you said, that you mentioned that when you used to play ice hockey, your teammates used to talk about commercial real estate?
Yeah, it's just a lot of the, back when I was, 17, 18, a lot of the parents of these, of my teammates were all involved in commercial real estate. I saw that they were successful and, how they lived their lives and the houses they lived in and stuff. And I was like, I want that, I want to try to obtain what they were going for. So.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the reasons because the ice hockey if you have a kid, you want to let him go to play ice hockey. It's just maybe expensive sport.
Yeah,
so the parents we need to come up with a business to support our kids.
That is true. Yeah, it's a pretty pricey sport, especially here in the States, because and especially in Texas, there's not a rink on every corner like there's in Canada.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So, you saw what was happening amongst, again, your, ice hockey players. You heard their parents talking about commercial real estate. So how old you were there and why have you decided to move into commercial space? What reasons kind of attracted you to move in that space?
I've just always, to be honest, I've always liked the development side of things, kind of more of the construction. That's actually a side that I have not gotten into yet, but it's kind of a stepping stone process for me. So that's kind of always what I've liked doing and doing my, drone stuff is kind of what you mentioned on this side. I've always liked filming, downtown skylines and that type of stuff. So I've always just been attracted to the big, tall buildings. To be honest, getting into multifamily was, my mentor, Jared, actually kind of helped guide me into that. It wasn't an asset that I was truly familiar with or, didn't have the glamorous skyrise in downtown. So it wasn't really what I was dreaming myself going into, but, told me about this industry and I love it because it's a real people industry and, you get to help people. It's where they live. So it's a good place to be.
Got it. So the first kind of position in commercial real estate, it was as a property accountant for CBRE. Yep. So can you talk about your experience? How did you came across that position and, your journey while working for CBRE?
Yeah, I kind of used my accounting background to get here in Dallas. You know, it was my first job out of college, and you know, accountants get placed pretty quickly out of college here, and so I hate accounting, to be honest. I just kind of, it's a skill that I used and learned in college, and came down here, and it was a great way to learn how the money flows through the different types of properties, and you know, how to do the budgeting and everything like that. So it was a great way to learn how a property operates on the financial side of things. Um, and so, you know, after spending a few years of that, doing that, I felt like I was truly ready to be, you know, hop over to the brokerage side. Because in my personality, I'm not really like this in your face salesperson. You know, that, you know, some people think that what brokers are, and you know, I'm more laid back, have that kind of accounting personality, and use the numbers to my advantage, I think, on help underwriting properties, or help adding value maybe on teams that don't have an accountant.
I think you're in the right place because again, I love what you said, the fact that you're not in people's face and you're using kind of the numbers, you know, but because like the multifamily business and you focused on multifamily commercial real estate in particular, and that's where you moved to CRE firm and, you know, you work with them right now. And of course we can discuss your journey and things that you're working on currently, but you know, that's very beautiful. I just want to point out because again, it's not a sales game, right? It's kind of solving somebody else's problem through the numbers,
Oh
right?
yeah, exactly. You know, when you try to get a, you know, my goal is to get a listing of a property, right? Is to find who wants to sell, and you know, someone's not just, you're not going to call someone and then say, yeah, I'm ready to sell it, like let's go, you know, without knowing you or anything. And it's a process too. You know, they might tell you, yeah, I'm looking to sell in 6 months from now or a year from now. So me being able to obtain their financials from them, and take a look at how the property is doing, I can kind of mold myself into more of a consultant role of helping them, using that accounting background, of kind of helping them prepare their property to sell. You know, saying, okay, well, if you're not ready yet, you know, maybe in a year, let's work on this, this, and this. And, you know, in 8 months from now, let's revisit this, and you should be good to go. So using that kind of, you know, more of a long-term approach and more of a consulting approach than, you know, just trying to attack a listing and sell property.
Yeah, no, that is great. That is great. That's awesome. So, can you talk about the Texas market itself? Maybe you don't know these numbers from the back of your head, and that's perfectly fine. But maybe you do. So, like, how Texas rank when it comes to the sales volume on multifamily deals in the states?
So I know Dallas has previously, before COVID, I've always heard Dallas was the number one market. I think that it has fallen down a little bit during 2020. You know, I hear markets like Tampa, Florida doing good. The Carolinas are doing great, and even Atlanta and Phoenix. So it's kind of all this southern kind of sun belt is what they call it here. You know, in the United States, it's the bottom southern states. A lot of these states don't have income tax, and so I think that's a huge driver of why companies are moving here.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's it, I wouldn't say, you know, it might not be the top anymore. It was, but it's definitely probably still in the top five markets here for multifamily, and honestly, probably everything industrial and office as well.
Mm. So, did the COVID slow down the market a lot, or just a little bit? Like, what's going on with the COVID?
Yeah, I'd say it pretty much completely paused everything. It for a while, you know, it was kind of just the uncertainty of what was going to happen and what was going on was more of the reason. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't that real estate was crashing or anything like that. It was just more of the fear of not knowing if this virus was going to spread like everyone was saying it was, or if it was going to take a slower approach, and wanting to keep their residents safe. And so that was a huge aspect of it. Is, you know, someone was maybe wanting to sell, but they didn't want people walking in and out of all their residence units. Their property tours got put on pause because people couldn't meet up at the property anymore with social distancing and things like that. So it kind of froze the market for a while. And then it's honestly kind of just now starting, the optimism's kind of starting to come back. You know, it's kind of, you know, the talk is more of, okay, we don't know where the virus is going from here. Almost no one does, but it's here. We got to live with it. Let's move on with business. And people are starting to get more open, to going to meet for coffee or lunch or go meeting at the property. And the meetings are starting to pick up, which means that, the deal transaction volume is going to start picking up as well.
Okay, so the brokerage itself, the Worldwide Commercial, is it brand new brokerage? Because I've seen it like it's been 2 years since the brokerage established, or it's been longer.
No, it's been 10, close to 10 years. My head broker is the president of the company, and he came from Moore Partners, which is a big brokerage firm here in Dallas. So he split off from there and started his own, and owns a couple medical office buildings and owns some properties themselves. But as far as the brokerage aspect, we have a multifamily team. There's 3 of us now. And so we kind of divided up different markets around Texas and between amongst our team and go after it.
Got it. So kind of the secret sauce that I will be looking for right now, like there's a lot of multifamily investors that are looking for
Oh yeah.
deals, and best case scenario for them, they want to find the so-called off-market deals.
Yep.
So how do you go about, and personally, how do you like come across owners that they want to sell property with you?
So I personally use, kind of 2 tactics. One, I mean, the main thing is cold calling, but right now, because I was a huge networker before COVID, I was at every event, in Dallas or Houston that I possibly could be at. Pretty much every night I was doing some kind of networking event, and that's how I built my network and relationship. But with COVID hitting, it's gone pretty much to virtual stuff like this and phone calls. And so I've switched my strategy more to that aspect of it, which was a big change for me because I'm more of a face-to-face person. And then I use my drone company a lot because what's happened during COVID is people couldn't go to like I said, you couldn't go, the property management companies, the leasing offices, everything was shut down. So people found out I had this drone and I could do virtual tours. So I'd go to owners and be like, hey, let me set up some virtual tours for you, for your residents, and keep driving traffic to your property. And so that would kind of get me into the door with them and create that relationship. And so over time, when you start filming a property multiple times, you start understanding what their plan is for that property, whether it's, selling in a year or selling now or whatnot. So that's kind of how I get in touch with the market and try to figure out who's willing to let go and who's not. Because like you said, everyone wants the off market deal. There's people think that just because the property's listed, it's going to be overpriced, because the competition is going to kind of drive it up. So everyone wants to hunt that off market of let me just put down an offer to the owner and he'll accept it and let's move on.
But I mean that does happen, when the property is getting overpriced, especially during this times, because there's a lot of money, there's a lot of equity in the markets, and people definitely they whatever the offer will come in, somebody will offer a better price, which sometimes for investment it doesn't make any sense, but they just want to buy it for.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard a stat, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that Dallas area DFW has hit pretty much 50% of the deals have gone off market this year in 2020. So that's a huge number. So I think it just depends on the strategy of the seller on, sometimes that's how they want to do it. They'll send you the financials and say, hey, just bring me a buyer and let's just do this under the table, or sometimes they're really motivated and they're wanting to move on to the next property, right? So that's when they might list it. So then they're guaranteed to pretty much sell it at a certain date.
The best price, the premium.
Yeah.
Got it. So okay. So what will be kind of the difference, from a property owner standpoint, if they're looking to sell off the property? Like, can you talk about the benefits why they should go with a broker just like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, kind of we touched on it just a little bit, but of course the buyers want to find the off market deals, right? But to be honest, if you're a seller, you might get a great off market, opportunity. There's a lot of money coming in town from the Northeast and California and stuff, but the real way to capitalize on the market is truly listing the property with the brokerage firm, because for instance, it kind of goes into what we're currently working on. We have 1,000 units down in Houston, and we listed it, and within 2 weeks, there's over 400 people downloaded the financials. So, just having those numbers, it's a numbers game, right? If you can get it out to the masses, then majority, more people are going to see it, which is going to get you the best price and the best offer for your property. And some owners kind of are hesitant about listing a property because maybe they're just not fully ready to let go of it, or they want to do it off market. And to me, I don't really see any benefit as listing something off market as a seller. I think the best way is to go with the brokerage and get the exposure that you need.
Yeah, because you see these, like, you're still gonna find these people who are kind of mom and pop type of operators, and they want to sell it kind of themselves. They don't want to deal with the brokers, and so that's happening. But like, so we got the benefits. Why is it better to market for themselves? But from a mom and pop operator standpoint, like the question, like, what is the process that you go through? Because maybe they never spoke with a broker, let's say in 20 years. So what will be kind of the process that you will go with them when it comes to selling the property?
Yeah, that's big. I mean, one, trust is the biggest thing with a brokerage too, is you just got to keep meeting them, getting them to trust you, because, kind of like how it goes back to the consulting approach, right? A mom and pop owner, brokerages will work with big institutional firms, and people that have been running multifamily properties, as their actual career for, 20, 30 years plus. So these mom and pop owners, by working with the broker, they might get different ideas for the property or different things that they might never thought of, too, which is big. By looking at the financials, doing little things like adding LED lights, or cutting down electricity costs, or just little things. There's thousands of little things that you can do to add value to a property or decrease expenses, and just by getting a fresh look of eyes on the property might be able to help them position or sell it and get a better price. So the mom and pop, it's really more hands-on. It's a true consulting approach, and kind of help guiding them through this. And there's a lot of negotiations with multifamily stuff, and especially when you got a bunch of institutional money coming in from New York and Boston, and these huge companies have a lot of money, have a lot of legal power. I mean, they can come in to these mom and pop owners and kind of push them around the contract process. But by having a brokerage, we can, kind of help manage that and keep them from getting manhandled by some of these other, larger firms when they do decide to sell.
Okay. So on a day-to-day like basis, so who is your best client so far, and how many people you got? I mean, is it the big funds that coming to acquire the deals that you're looking for in Dallas, or more of it is just a single, individual operators?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question, because right now we've noticed, me and my boss were actually just talking, the market's kind of starting to shift here. My network was the true words, it's syndications. And it's a lot of people that maybe were engineers or doctors or whatnot, and then they've hopped over to multifamily as a passive investor, and then they move from passive to being active. And that's probably the majority of the activity here. It's big in Texas. There's a lot of big educational groups here that run a very good program. But the market's kind of starting to shift a little bit, because these bigger firms have seen recessions before, and multiple recessions. So they've had money set aside for these exact moments. And so it's making it harder for the syndication groups, because, the way that they've been taught to underwrite these deals or to value what a property's worth isn't really the case anymore. They might be a little too conservative, when a lot of these companies have been planning for this exact moment, and they're coming in and basically jacking up the price on everything. Yeah. Because that's kind of what we're going through, is we'll have a listing, and the local people in Texas will be like, that's too expensive. But, then you get the guy from New York coming in and pays it no problem. Right. And that's the great thing about capitalism, right? Is what the price is what someone's willing to pay for it, right? So a lot of
Exactly.
people will say things are too expensive, but it's not too expensive if someone out there is willing to pay that price.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
it definitely makes sense, for, as I mentioned, for somebody with, let's say if it's a hedge fund or a
Mhm.
different, operator in New York, and they buying something in Dallas, which for them is like looking by the New York standards is
Yep.
definitely, like underpriced. So like looking at these properties, even if the fund is going to overpay on that deal, it will even out when they're going to look at the AUM that they have, because these operators have thousands and thousands of units under management.
Oh yeah,
So for them
exactly.
is yeah, for them
Yeah,
is
and
just a number, extra number on the deals that they currently have.
yeah, and they might not be, like the syndications are trying to raise a bunch of money from passive investors, so they have to
Yeah,
prove a certain,
yeah,
cash on cash return. And a lot of these funds, from New York or California and those type of things, their returns can be a lot smaller.
yeah,
So it gives them the ability to pay a higher price.
yeah. But from your perspective, it's an easier transaction.
Yeah, I mean it. To be honest, I mean I don't know the exact stat, but as far as we've gone, is if you truly get a listed property, it's I would say 90% chance it's going to close. Especially in the state of Texas, because some the activity here is just it's just crazy. People flying in town trying to find properties. It's not just local people that are after this
Yeah,
market.
yeah.
So that's a good and bad thing, right? That's a good thing if you it's a good thing if you currently own a property and you're wanting to sell, but it's hard to be a buyer trying to break into this industry at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, especially if you're starting out. So, because as you said, there's a lot of people looking from different markets in the States. And even though there is even other investors, operators in different countries,
Yep.
Japan, Korea, like from Europe, Germany, Great Britain, they're looking to invest and own some land and some properties that will cash flow in the United States. So I think at the end, the capitalism will win, so
Oh
that's
yeah,
good.
absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even get into worldwide network. It's just
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the Japanese funds and the Korean funds and all that. They're headed here as well. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so talking about the market again, the Texas, or maybe if we narrow down to the Dallas again, because there is a lot of uncertainty on what's happened with the economy, and I know like in the states elections, there's a lot of things coming up, a lot of
mm,
noise. So what do you see yourself personally, where Dallas is going to be, in the future? If we're going to look, half a year or maybe a year from now, what do you think?
I mean, Dallas, I wouldn't say, I don't want to jinx it, but in the I'm young, so I didn't really fully live through the last recession, or wasn't in the workforce. I was in college, but I've always heard Dallas is recession proof. Basically because there might be a dip or it might slow down, but the other cities in the United States get hit a lot harder and a lot faster. So, we mentioned, Joe Rogan moving here and some of the celebrities and stuff. So people, when things do start going wrong, people move here. So it keeps this market growing at a pretty, level percentage. Um, and so, when you bring up the election is a huge deal right now going on, and that was the deal for 2020. Back at the beginning, as a sales agent, we were going to basically say like, hey, you probably want to try to sell your property before the election, because historically market dips every time an election happens, at least for a couple months. So that was like the target for everyone. And then when COVID hit, it threw everyone off, and it's like I don't think people really cared about the election as a target anymore. They were just worried about weathering the storm
Yeah,
of COVID. So with COVID, at least in Texas, the optimism's here pretty high. Everything's pretty much open at full capacity. People are wearing masks everywhere, but things are kind of back in business. So the talk is switching less from COVID and more back to the election. Um, and this particular election, whatever side you vote on, it does affect real estate. One drastically. So there's a lot of bills in place on each side that people are kind of, it's a waiting game to see who wins, because real estate will be affected by the outcome of this election, and so everyone's kind of holding off to figure out what that's going to look like.
Got it. Okay, so it's still talking on the market. Can you talk about what are the main kind of dominating industries when it comes to employment? Because I know Texas itself, I mean, it's heavily involved like into hospitals. There's one of the
Mhm.
best hospitals in the States when it comes to, I think, heart or brain surgery, something with that.
Yeah.
So is that the number one kind of industry, or there's something else too?
I Medical is probably number one. I like, for instance, what our listings are down in Houston, and a lot of people have the perception of like Houston's only oil, right? It's like an oil town, blah blah blah. And yes, oil's big there, but that's not even the number one employer. It's medical. Um, so that is another thing that kind of helps Texas out is, people perceive it as being an oil state or this, focused on in one industry, but it's very diverse. Tech is growing here. Um, a lot of the tech firms from California are starting to move to cities like Austin, and Dallas. Big medical companies are here all over Dallas and Houston. Um, but yeah, I would say tech and medical would probably be the top two, and then obviously oil is pretty big. But it's a very diverse city as far as what type of companies are here, which kind of helps protect it in times like this, because if one of the industries starts going down, there's enough employers here that their industry is doing well, so it kind of helps protect the city from recession.
Mm, got it. Okay, thanks for sharing that also. So, thing that I wanted to ask again about the drone footage, because I know you
Yeah,
have the company that kind of, aligns together with a brokerage firm that you're
yeah,
working for. And again, I mentioned there's the drone footage. When you're going to go to the website that is called crefirm.com, you're going to see your footage. So, can you talk about how did you came up with that idea that you need to implement this, or maybe like so the time frame, where did it started? Did it started during the COVID, before the COVID? Can you talk about
oh
that
yeah,
also?
this started way before COVID. I kind of used it as I used it traveling. I love to travel, and so I would use it to film surfing or skiing, or I kind of use it more of an adventure aspect of my life, and just kind of for fun, for footage for myself. But then I started kind of figuring out if you can follow someone skiing on a drone, it's a lot more easy to film a building that's standing still. Right? So
True, true.
it was kind of a skill that I was just like, hey, I'm starting to develop this skill. How can I actually turn this hobby into a business, right? And so I actually started doing that before I even became a broker. I was filming real estate properties for probably 4 or 5 years now. I've only been a broker coming up on two. So I've just kind of basically got lucky, to be honest, like being able to merge the two. It wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't anything. It just kind of happened. Um, COVID hit, and it was one of those weird industries that it helped, right? So
Yeah.
COVID had some things like, for instance, Zoom blew up. A lot of people didn't know what it was until COVID hit. So it was kind of one of those industries that everyone knew what drone footage was. um, a lot of the older real estate developers and stuff maybe weren't utilizing it, and we're like, oh, I don't know if I need it. We've been operating just fine. And then COVID hit, and it was kind of that push of like, okay, now everyone needs a virtual tour of their property, pretty much done. And so now it's become basically a normal thing instead of, um, just a bonus.
Got it. Okay. So, I mean, doing with the drone footage, and of course, you can get in contact with Tyler if you want to, if you're an operator, and of course, because that's a great service to have. Because again, what's happening with the virtual tours and kind of giving people the experience of, like them being in a property virtually. So that's a great thing. But from your own personal, kind of approach and thinking, what do you think is going to happen again? With the COVID and with the technology, is there going to be something else that will come up? Maybe you have some news updates that kind of will help us to, like visit the property. Is going to be like VR glasses. Like, what's going to happen? Is there going to be additional things to that also?
Yeah, what's next? I mean, I think this market is, or not, maybe not the market, but the process of how people did business is disrupted
Yeah,
forever. Um, for instance, people are still debating around if people are ever going to go back to the office.
it's a good question.
Or if it's going to be work remote, work from home all the time. And then you go from that into the property tours. we're getting offers on stuff down in Houston by nothing from one of our drone videos. Like during COVID, people weren't ready to travel or make the trip. You can get enough in-depth documentation on a drone that you can send them the footage and they can get a general idea between that footage and a financial statement on what the property's worth and whether they're interested or not. So, I mean, essentially it's changing the game as far as travel goes. It's not as needed as much. You can do these virtual tours, you can send them off, you can get an offer on a property. People will buy a $50 million property without ever even stepping foot on it anymore.
Yeah. That's
so
crazy.
if with that, and then like you said, I couldn't imagine once VR gets introduced to the market, what that's going to do, but pretty much just walk through a property in your own conference room.
Exactly.
I don't know how that
I mean, yeah, there's different things coming up, and again, I think for the business, it's good. I mean, for like in your positions, really well. I mean, with a brokerage, having 10+ years experience and multifamily, selling multifamily deals and helping operators sell them, and again with the drone footage company, that's really cool. So you position yourself in really good spot, personally, at least yourself.
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
thank you. I mean, yeah, like I said, it wasn't really a plan. It just kind of just all falls together. But like I said, future plans, I maybe want to get involved in some development and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's kind of just everything kind of just naturally tying together. It wasn't forced or anything.
Just making a lot of good decisions, that's how you come out to the end result. So awesome.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Awesome. So again, Tyler, appreciate you being today in the show. I mean, so a lot of great tips, information, kind of knowledge nuggets, for the people who are looking to buy or sell the property. So I really appreciate you today coming on the show and sharing your, strategies and tips. So it's been a great fun.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And again, guys and girls, before we're going to go, one thing that I wanted to ask you, if you share this episode with a friend of yours, best case scenario, there will be a person who is looking to sell their multifamily properties or they're looking to buy. Again, for you, wink, wink, if you start getting in contact with Tyler and build the relationship with him, you can find the off-market deals in Dallas, Texas. So make sure to pass this episode along. Again, Tyler, I appreciate you for being today on the show. And as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.